Pope Francis has always been a name that stands for love, humility, and courage. From the moment he first appeared on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, he made history. He was the first Jesuit pope, the first pope from the Americas, and a leader who truly touched the hearts of millions. His time as pope was a shining light of hope, showing the world how faith can lead to real action. Throughout his papacy, he showed deep compassion for the poor, the sick, and those forgotten by society. He reminded the world that the Church is not just a powerful institution, but a place of healing, like a field hospital for those in pain. He spoke about issues that went far beyond religion: climate change, social justice, and the importance of peace among different faiths. His message was always clear: build bridges, not walls, and treat each other with kindness and love. But even the strongest leaders have their limits. Over the years, people noticed Pope Francis was slowing down. He suffered from knee pain, back pain, and the effects of multiple surgeries. Still, he continued to serve, pushing forward despite his visible struggles. Then, whispers began to circulate. Could he continue? Should he? His health became a growing concern, and his frequent cancellations of events made it clear that his strength was fading. Soon the unthinkable became possible. Would he step down? When he finally made the choice, it was with the same humility that had defined his leadership. He knew what the role of pope required, and with a heavy heart, he decided it was time to step back. His words leading up to the announcement were filled with emotion. Just weeks before resigning, he released his autobiography, Hope, where he shared his thoughts about his time as pope. He wrote, "I am well," but also admitted, "I am old." It was a simple yet powerful statement that prepared people for what was to come. As his final public appearances drew near, they became more emotional. His voice, sometimes shaky, still carried the weight of his faith, love, and service. The world watched with heavy hearts, knowing that a significant chapter in history was coming to an end. And then, the moment arrived. His resignation was not an act of weakness, but an act of love. He knew the Church needed someone with the energy to lead through the challenges of the modern world. His decision showed his deep commitment to the Church and its people. It was a selfless act, proving once again that he was a true servant leader. His farewell speech was one of the most emotional moments in Vatican history. As he spoke, many in the audience could not hold back their tears. His voice was filled with gratitude and love as he reflected on his journey. He urged everyone to serve with humility and joy, reminding them that the Church is built on love and compassion. He asked people to resist division, to embrace their differences, and to continue building bridges instead of walls. His final words felt like a prayer and a blessing. "Let us go forward in faith," he said, reminding everyone that they are loved by God. And with that, he stepped back, leaving behind a legacy that will never be forgotten. The reaction to his resignation was overwhelming. From the streets of Rome to countries around the world, people reflected on his papacy. Leaders praised his compassion and his efforts for peace. Religious figures from all backgrounds expressed their gratitude for his work in building connections between different faiths. For many, it was a bittersweet moment. They mourned his departure, but also celebrated the incredible mark he left on the world. Stories of his kindness and wisdom spread everywhere, reminding people of the hope and love he had shared. The Catholic Church, like a global family, felt the loss of their shepherd. But this was also a time of reflection and renewal. With his resignation, the Church faced an important question: what comes next? The responsibility of choosing a new leader now rested in the hands of the cardinals. The world watched with anticipation, wondering who would take on the enormous role that Pope Francis had carried with such grace. The next pope would face many challenges. Society was changing rapidly, and the Church needed someone who could guide it through the struggles of the 21st century. Ethical dilemmas, shifting cultural values, and new global challenges awaited. Who would rise to the occasion? Who would have the wisdom, compassion, and vision to continue the work Pope Francis had started? Though the future seemed uncertain, there was also a strong sense of hope. The Church had faced difficult moments before and had always found its way forward. The guiding force of faith remained strong, and people believed that the Holy Spirit would lead them to the right leader. As Pope Francis stepped away, his legacy remained clear. He would always be remembered as the Pope of the poor, a champion of the marginalized, and a voice for justice. He had shown the world that true leadership is not about power, but about service, humility, and love. His teachings inspired millions to help those in need, to show kindness to strangers, and to build a world based on unity rather than division. He had reminded people that love is not just an emotion, it is an action, a force that can heal wounds and bring people together. As the Catholic Church entered a new chapter, Pope Francis's influence would not fade. His words, his actions, and his spirit would continue to guide people in their faith. His resignation was not the end of his journey but the beginning of a new phase, where his teachings would live on in the hearts of those he had touched. The Church now stood at a crossroads, facing both challenges and opportunities. The absence of its leader left a void, but it also created a moment for renewal. Inspired by Pope Francis's example, the Church prepared to move forward with strength and determination. The road ahead would not be easy. There were many issues to address, from social justice to climate change, from poverty to conflict. But Pope Francis had given the Church a clear path to follow, one of love, humility, and faith. The world watched as the Church took its next steps. There was a sense of anticipation. Who would be the next pope? What changes would come? How would the Church evolve in the years ahead? One thing was certain: the Catholic Church would continue to be a source of hope for millions. It would stand strong in the face of challenges, guided by the faith and love that Pope Francis had embodied. His message would not be forgotten. He had reminded the world that faith is not just about belief, but about action. He had shown that kindness and humility could change lives, and he had encouraged people to never lose hope, even in the darkest times. As the world moved forward, the spirit of Pope Francis's leadership remained alive. His call for compassion, unity, and care for the planet would continue to inspire future generations. Though his time as Pope had ended, his mission had not. The journey of faith goes on, and the lessons he taught will guide people for years to come. And so, with gratitude and love, we say goodbye to Pope Francis as the leader of the Church. But his legacy, one of hope, humility, and service, will never fade. It will continue to shine, lighting the way for all who seek a world filled with love and compassion.